Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Michelle Fondin. I am the author of Heal Yourself, A Return to Wholeness, the integration of body, mind, soul, and spirit. All of my books are available in paperback, Kindle, and Audible books. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you for subscribing below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications, and thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. I do tarot readings, 30, 60, and 90-minute readings, twin flame romance, general readings, life path, and purpose. You can book that at my website, michellefondinauthor.com. Welcome to my new series on this book, Heal Yourself, A Return to Wholeness. And this is the second video in this series. If you missed the first video that is called The Source of Suffering, I'm gonna post that right here so you can check it out after this video. But please do subscribe if you are not subscribed to get all of the videos in this series and other series that I've published here on YouTube. So here we are, second video in this series, and this one is called Fate versus Free Will. Fate versus free will. Look, this could be a 3-day topic, not a 30-minute topic, not a 20-minute topic. This could be a 3-day non-stop debate. So I know I've got a huge undertaking in this video, and I know that you might be left totally dissatisfied with my explanation. But that's the first thing that I want to express to you in this topic of fate versus free will, is that this is my explanation through my own experience with fate versus free will. And I know many, if not all, religions have addressed fate versus free will, and philosophies have addressed this topic. So I don't want you to get caught up in the ideology of it, and I don't want you to necessarily get caught up in the religious aspect of it. This is just to help you on your spiritual journey in healing yourself and returning to a state of wholeness. So in order to do that, we kind of need to grasp a little bit fate versus free will and really understand how much control we actually have in our lives versus the things that tend to be kind of out of our control, right? So I'm going to take this from a perspective that I have learned through my growth in life, through many different types of philosophies. Most of you that have been following my videos for quite some time now, I've been doing YouTube full time since 2019. I had been producing videos in earnest probably since about 2016, but I wasn't very popular back then. I'm still not very popular, but I certainly have more views than I had back then. I probably had like 20 views per video, if that. Probably 3 of those 20 were myself watching my video over and over again. Fate versus free will choice. Most of you know that I was raised Catholic, and Catholicism and Christianity have a concept of fate versus free will, right? God gives us free will choice. Some things are predestined, but for the most part, when we're born into this life, God gives us free will. And then I studied Eastern philosophies, notably Vedanta, Vedic philosophies, and Buddhism. Those are 2 of the Eastern philosophies that I've studied. I know a lot more about Vedanta than I know about Zen Buddhism, but typically they're pretty similar in many ways in regards to fate versus free will, right? In some ways there's some overlap, and there's also overlap with mainstream religions with fate versus free will. So here's what I've come to believe. What I have come to believe is that some things are predestined. Some things you've agreed to before you came here. So your soul wanted to learn certain lessons. Your soul wanted to develop, grow, expand. in ways that it had not experienced before, or maybe even your soul wanted to grow in this lifetime in ways that it wasn't able to finish in previous lifetimes. Now I'm going to address the elephant in the room, and the elephant in the room here with this philosophy is reincarnation, that you live more than once. And I know this isn't a concept in Christianity, Islam, Judaism, monotheistic religions. It's just not. So this is a pre-concept of destiny versus free will, or fate versus free will. The concept has to embrace the fact that this isn't your first go around. And it's probably not your last go around either. And so if you can't understand or grasp or hold on to that concept, this explanation is going to be a little bit more challenging for you. But let's suppose you do hold on to the belief system that we just get one time around this planet, right? We just get one lifetime. The main religions that believe this also have a concept of fate versus free will. It's just that fate is what God is predestined for you in your life, right? So God has made certain decisions for your life and the way it's supposed to unfold. Yet God has also given you free will choice to the path that you choose to unfold those things, right? Well, my belief of fate versus free will is very much the same, even though I've fully embraced the concept of reincarnation. And the reason why reincarnation makes the most sense to me is A, because I have a remembrance of past lives, and B, I've had some really weird stuff happening as I was growing up that make no sense to the logic mind. So I believe my last lifetime was in India, and maybe I had so many lifetimes in India. And here's the reason for that. When I was young, really young, I had this fascination with cows. I was probably Hindu in a past life, or the most recent past life. I had this fascination with cows. No rhyme or reason to it. No rhyme or reason to my fascination with cows. And I even called cows the sacred cow. I looked at cows as being sacred. No rhyme or, and this was young. I was young. I was probably 9, 10 years old when I started worshiping cows as if they were sacred, if you will. I mean, and this carried on throughout. Like my conscious memory of childhood is that I would look at cows as sacred. Now, fast forward to when I turned 17, I met a man 8 years my senior who was a vegetarian and who converted me to being vegetarian. And since age 17, I never ate another cow ever. So that's weird, right? That's super weird. And then fast forward a little more, and then I become an Ayurvedic practitioner, learning everything about Ayurveda. Not everything there is to know. There's a lot to know about Ayurveda, but learning about Ayurveda and learning Sanskrit. And what's weird is that Sanskrit and Ayurveda felt very familiar to me. I'd never been to India. I never even ate Indian food until I was in my 30s. So you're like, what? None of that makes sense. Well, it makes sense if you believe in reincarnation, because that means that I've been there before. My soul has been there before. It's already journeyed there. I have a great understanding of Vedanta. Weird stuff, right? So destiny is basically based on a couple of things. So fate and destiny is based on a couple of things if you believe in the concept of reincarnation. The first thing it's based on is your soul's purpose and what your soul signed up to do in this lifetime. So basically your soul wanted to have certain experiences to evolve and grow, and you signed up for it. You signed on the dotted line. You said, I'd like to learn this in my next incarnation. This is what I'd love to learn. The other thing about fate or destiny is the fact that you've journeyed before with other people. And you need to perhaps continue those journeys in this lifetime. And additionally, you've had karmic experiences, meaning you've accumulated good karma and not so good karma. So you have debts owed and you have debts that you must pay back. And so the destiny or fate portion of this has to do with those things, right? What your soul signed up for, the people you must meet again, and the karma that is owed to you and the karma you must pay back. So that's the whole fate and destiny piece. On the other side, we have the free will piece. And the free will piece is I come into this life as an individual with the gift of having the free will choices to take my path the way I want to take it. Now, does your free will annihilate everything that's in your destiny? No, it really doesn't, because if this is like your 55th go around on this planet, you've got a lot of baggage that you've carried with you to this lifetime. And so it doesn't get rid of your baggage just because you have free will choice to not deal with your baggage, just like you have free will choice to not deal with your baggage in this lifetime. But that doesn't make it go away. It just means, guess what? You get to carry it to the next lifetime. So the free will is more of, can you become aware that you have things in your destiny pattern? Can you become aware that you have karma you must pay back? Can you become aware that there are relationships, most relationships in your life, that are meetings that you must have in order to fulfill something, a soul contract with that person, for example? And how are you going to go into this with your free will? Are you going to go in kicking and screaming? Are you going to go in with your eyes wide open or your eyes shut? Are you going to go in with your fists clenched? Or are you going to go with open hands and an open heart and say, okay, here I am. Do with me what you will, God, Spirit, Source, angels. Help me out here. Help me to see my destiny patterns. Help me to see the people I must see in this lifetime. Help me to pay back my karmic debt. Help me to see my toxic patterns so that I don't repeat them in the next lifetime, so I don't have to repeat them in the next lifetime. And so it is an interplay between fate and free will as far as how easy or how hard will you make your life. Now, we are in agreement that some people, especially the most evolved souls, come into this lifetime with really hard lives, really hard lives. And you might be thinking, I'm easy, I'm open, but why is my life so darn complicated? Why is my life so darn hard? I believe that the more evolved your soul is, the harder the homework gets. You encounter more challenges, you encounter more tests, if you will, so that you can see the level of your own adaptability with your free will choices. And the more flexible you are in your free will choices to encounter those obstacles, those hardships, the easier it will be to manage those lessons. It's when we create resistance to our lives, to those things that are predestined, when we create resistance to it, we often have a much, much, much more complicated time than if we meet those things head on with an open mind, open heart, and really embrace it and say, okay, I'm going to choose to look at this as just a part of my life. This is a part of what I'm learning here. And this is a part of how I am growing as a soul on this journey. So to that end, I'm going to give you one example of my own life that really threw me for a loop recently. And this thing happened back in 1999. And I talk about it in this book, The Wheel of Healing with Ayurveda, An Easy Guide to a Healthy Lifestyle. Now, some of you have heard this story time and time again. So you can always fast forward this, but it's going to tie into fate versus free will, because when I realized something very recently about my experience back in 1999, so if you do the math, guys, right now it's 2023, you do the math, that was 24 years ago. And it was only a year ago that I discovered that I could have circumvented the whole damn thing that happened to me in 1999. And I was pissed for about a day. So what happened in 1999 is that I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Now, it wasn't that in the beginning. In the beginning, I had a nodule at the side of my neck. I don't know which side it was, one of the sides. And it was diagnosed by an OBGYN who was a replacement for my OBGYN who was on maternity leave. And this fella doctor said, what's that, who's taking care of your thyroid problem? And I said, what thyroid? I didn't even know what a thyroid was. But he said, you've got a big nodule at the side of your neck. That's certainly your thyroid. What happened after that was crazy. It was a whirlwind of medical decisions. I felt totally out of control. And what happened was they did a fine needle biopsy that same day. Yes, he called it in to an endocrinologist who did a fine needle biopsy the exact same day. The results came back the next day, inconclusive. It could be cancerous, maybe not cancerous, some cancer, who knows? When I went into surgery the next month, or it wasn't even the next month, it was probably like 2 weeks later, I went into surgery to get half of the thyroid taken out with the nodule. In the operating room, the pathologist did not find any cancer. But then they send out the tissue sample to a lab, and it wasn't until a whole week later that it came back and they said, well, there is some cancer here. Well, for me, that was a problem because that meant I had to go back into surgery and get the other half of my thyroid removed and go through something called radioactive iodine therapy. Now, I was very, very young at the time. I was in my 20s. I had 2 small children at the time. This freaked me out and it totally messed with my entire life. But that wasn't the end of the story. What happened was I decided to get a second opinion from a holistic doctor who was also a medical doctor. And I said, what should I do? Should I go in and have this second surgery, get the other half of my thyroid removed? I'm so young and it took them forever to find the cancer. And he just hugged me, embraced me and said, you know what? If you were my daughter, I would ask you to do this. So I went ahead and did it. But my journey into healing after that took forever because my body was not responding to synthetic thyroid hormones. I was in living hell for 3 years. My entire journey from sickness into health led me to Ayurveda, Ayurvedic medicine. I learned Ayurveda, yoga, meditation. I wrote my first book, that book I showed you, The Wheel of Healing with Ayurveda, based on my experience with cancer and into healing. Last year, I was visiting an endocrinologist who said to me, if your case had been presented to us today, and this was in 2022, but today, in today's world, we wouldn't have done surgery. We don't do surgery for that anymore. Like, nodules come and go. We treat the symptoms of the thyroid, the hypothyroidism, but we don't operate on it. We would have just left it alone. It goes away on its own. And I was so irate. I was so angry. I was like, what do you mean you don't operate? I went through all of that. I went through that hell. And if it were today, you just leave it alone? I was really upset. But then I thought about fate versus free will. Now, at the time, it really did not seem like I had a choice. And in all honesty, I probably really didn't have a choice. All the doctors were saying the exact same thing. My family was saying the same thing. They said if it's cancer, you want it out, you don't want it to spread. And I thought about everything that followed that horrendous experience. The fact that I was sick for like 2 to 3 years after getting my thyroid removed, that I discovered Ayurveda, that I discovered different sorts of meditation through that and self-healing through that. I would have never in a million years done any research on holistic healing had that not happened. And when all is said and done, having your thyroid removed, while it was really hard for me for like 2 years, it's not that serious, right? It's not like I had brain cancer. So I believe that that experience was part of my destiny. That was fate. It sucked big time. It was probably one of the worst periods of my life. But I believe it had to happen to lead me to where I am today. And so while I got really angry in 2022 when I heard that endocrinologist say to me, like, we wouldn't have done nothing, just let it go away by itself, I had to say to myself, but that was part of your destiny. You wouldn't be where you are today, having published 10 books, working on your 11th book, talking about healing, if you hadn't experienced that. So that certainly was part of my destiny pattern. So do you see now how fate can formulate how your life goes? And free will is your response to the fated aspect of your life. How do you respond? How do you answer the call? How do you move through the really difficult times of your life or the really amazing times of your life? Because amazing times can be fated too. You know this, right? If you meet someone and you fall in love and it's almost too good to be true, and that person asks you to marry them, and you use your free will to say, no way, Jose, I'm not doing that. They might leave me someday, right? You might be refuting your destiny pattern. But you don't know, but you still have the free will choice to say no, even if it's a good thing, right? We can use our free will for the good and for the bad. But mostly it's to help our destiny unfold. And it's to help it unfold in a better way, an easier way. And so we can ask also our angels and our spirit guides, our ancestors, to help us, because that involves free will too, right? They can't interfere. So even your angelic presence and your spirit guides cannot interfere unless it's to save your life, but they can't interfere with your day-to-day life because you have free will. So if you want them to interfere with your daily life to help you, you must ask them. And the way I ask my angels and spirit guides is I say, thank you for helping me in all situations, because I want the help. If I can have heavenly help, sure, I want it at all times, every single time. So I hope this was helpful in helping you to really differentiate and understand the difference between fate versus free will. And again, this is my perspective. This is from my experience and my education, and it's not gospel truth, right? Don't take it as gospel truth, but if it resonates with you, amazing. And this will help you gain further lessons in the book, Heal Yourself or Return to Wholeness. And that's why I really wanted to address it early on in this series. So I want to thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. Thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Thank you for sharing this video with other twin flames. Thank you so much for your support of my YouTube channel. You can buy one of my 10 published books. You can join a Twin Flame Bootcamp. I have a meditation course that's online on demand. And I will see you in the next video.